ದುಡ್ಡಿಗೂ ಒಂದು ಇತಿಮಿತಿ ಇದೆ. ಕಸ ಎತ್ತೋದಕ್ಕೂ 15,000 ಕೋಟಿ ಕಮಿಷನ್, ಕಸ ಎತ್ತೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರಿನಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಇವರಿಗೆ ಓಟ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ ಇಲ್ಲೇ? ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಯಾವೊಂದು ಆನೆಯ ತುಳಿತದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಳಕಾಗಿ ನನ್ನ ರೈತರು ಬೆಳೆ ಹಾಳು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ. ನನ್ನ ರೈತರು ಪ್ರಾಣ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನೀರು ಬಿಡಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗಿ. ನಾನು ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ 2018 100 ಕೋಟಿ ಹಣ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಆ ರೈಲ್ವೆ ಲೈನ್ಗಳನ್ನ ಇದನ್ನು ಹಾಕ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟಿಗೆ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ₹1 ಬಂತ ರೈತರ ಬದುಕಲಿಗೆ. ಮೊನ್ನೆ ದಿನ ನಾನು ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಮಂಜುನಾಥ್ ಅವರು ಕೇಂದ್ರದ ರೈಲ್ವೆ ಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳು ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಇವತ್ತು ನಮಗೆ ರೈಲ್ವೆ ಕಾರಿಡಾರ್ಸ್ನ ಕಡಿಮೆ ರೇಟ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಮ್ಮ ರೈತರು ಪ್ರಾಣ ಉಳಿಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತು ಉಪಯೋಗ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇರತಕ್ಕಂಥ ರೈಲ್ವೆ ಲೈನ್ ನಮಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಮನಸ್ಸು ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ ಮಂಜುನಾಥ್ ಅವರು ನಾನು ಇಬ್ಬರು 3 ದಿನಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಹೋಗಿ ರೈಲ್ವೆ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಅಶ್ವಿನ್ ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ಭೇಟಿ ಮಾಡಿ ಒಪ್ಪಿಸಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಯೋಗ್ಯತೆ ಇದ್ರೆ ಅವರು ಕಡಿಮೆ ದರದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಆ ರೈಲ್ವೆಯ ಗಾರ್ಡನ್ಸ್ನ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಹಣ ಕಟ್ಟಿ ತಂದು ಮತ್ತು ರೈತರನ್ನು ಉಳಿಸ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಪ್ಪ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ಚನ್ನಪಣ್ಣ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ನಡೆಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದ ನಿಧಾನಕ್ಕೆ. ಆ ಥರ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ನನಗೆ. ಏನು ನಾನು ರಾಜೀನಾಮೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಇರ್ರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾ ನನಗೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಪ್ಪ. ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೆಸರು ಕೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಕೇಳಿ. ನೀವೇನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇನೆ. ನೀವು ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ನನಗೆ. ನೀವೇನೇನು ನಡೆಸಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ನಿನ್ನೆ ಬಿಜೆಪಿಯ ಪಕ್ಷದ ಬಾವುಟ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಸಮಾನ ಮನಸ್ಕರ ಸಭೆ ಕರೀತೀರಾ? ನಿಮಗೆ ಪಕ್ಷದ ನೇತಿದೆಯಾ? ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ನನಗೆಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ರು ವಿಷಯ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತದೆ. ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಇರಲಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಮಾತಾಡೋಣ. ನಾನು ಸೀಟನ್ನ ಕೊಡೋದು, ಸೀಟನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಡಿಯೂರಪ್ಪನವ್ರು ಕೂತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಈ ಪಕ್ಷ ಉಳಿಬೇಕು. NDA ಪಕ್ಷದ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಗೆಲ್ಲಬೇಕು. NDA ಪಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಾಮಾಣಿಕತೆಯಿಂದ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿಯ ಗೊಂದಲ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇವತ್ತು ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ನವರು ಏನೇನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ನನಗೆ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ನವರು. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಾನು ಈ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರ ಉಳಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೇಬೇಕು. ನನ್ನನ್ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಕನ್ನಡಪುರದ ನಮ್ಮ ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣದ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ನನ್ನನ್ನು ನಿಲ್ಲೇಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ನನ್ನ ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣದ ತಂದೆ ತಾಯಿದ್ರು ಏನು ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ಈ ಸೀಟನ್ನು ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನನ್ನ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತರು ನನಗೆ ಆಶೀರ್ವಾದ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಸೀಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿ NDA ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಯಾರನ್ನು ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಾವು ಗೆಲ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ಕೆಲಸ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಅದರಿಂದ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾನು ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣದ ಮಹಾಜನತೆಗೆ ಮನವಿ ಮಾಡ್ತೇನೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಬಹಳ ದೂರ ಪಾದಯಾತ್ರೆ ಮಾಡೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಯಾವುದೇ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ವಿರುದ್ಧ ವೈಯಕ್ತಿಕವಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಹೋರಾಟ ಅಲ್ಲ, ನನ್ನ ನಾಡಿನ ಜನತೆಯ ಬದುಕಿನ ಹೋರಾಟ. ಯಾವ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು 3ನೇ ಬಾರಿ ಪ್ರಧಾನಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳಾಗಿ ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಒಂದು ಸೈನ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದು ನಮ್ಮ ರೈತರಿಗೆ ಯಾವೊಂದು 6,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗಳನ್ನ ಪ್ರಧಾನಮಂತ್ರಿ ಕಿಸಾನ್ ಸಮ್ಮಾನ್ ಯೋಜನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಿರ್ಧಾರವನ್ನು ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಯಡಿಯೂರಪ್ಪನವರು ಅವರು 4ನೇ ಬಾರಿ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿ ಆದಾಗ 6,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ಜೊತೆಗೆ 4,000 ರೂಪಾಯಿಗಳನ್ನು ಕೊಡೋದ್ರ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನನ್ನ ರೈತರ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಚಟುವಟಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ಇವತ್ತು ಉಳಿಸಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು. ಈಗ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದು ಯಡಿಯೂರಪ್ಪನವ್ರ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ 4,000 ಹಣವನ್ನು ಕಿತ್ತಾಕಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ಕೇಂದ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು 3ನೇ ಬಾರಿ ಆಯ್ಕೆಯಾಗಿ ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಸಹಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದು ನಾನು ಕ್ಯಾಬಿನೆಟ್ನಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೆ. ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಸಹಿಯನ್ನು ಹಾಕಿದ್ದು ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು 20,000 ಕೋಟಿ ರೂಪಾಯಿಗಳನ್ನ ಈ ನಾಡಿನ ರೈತರಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಹಣವನ್ನು ಇವತ್ತು ಪ್ರಧಾನಮಂತ್ರಿ ಕಿಸಾನ್ ಸಮ್ಮಾನ್ ಯೋಜನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಮನೆ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ನ ನಾಯಕರಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ತೇನೆ, ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಮನೆ ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಸೈಟ್ ಕೊಡಕ್ಕಾಗಲಿಲ್ಲ ಜನತೆಗೆ ಇಡೀ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ. ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣದ ಒಂದೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇಡೀ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ 2017 ಚುನಾವಣೆ ಸಮಯ ಬಂದಾಗ ಇದೇ ಸಿದ್ದರಾಮಯ್ಯನವರು ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳಾಗಿ 15 ಲಕ್ಷ ಮನೆಗಳನ್ನು ಕಟ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಘೋಷಣೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸೂರುಗಳ ತೆಗಿರಿ, ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಅಂದ್ರು. ದುಡ್ಡಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೆಷ್ಟು? 2,000 ಕೋಟಿ. ದುಡ್ಡು ಎಷ್ಟು ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು? 15 ಲಕ್ಷ ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ಟಲಿಕ್ಕೆ 29,000 ಕೋಟಿ ಬೇಕಿತ್ತು. 29,000 ಕೋಟಿ 2,000 ದುಡ್ಡಿಟ್ಟು ಇವತ್ತು ಬಂದು ಕುಮಾರಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಟ್ಟ, ನಾವೇನು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಕೂತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 29,000 ಕೋಟಿ ದುಡ್ಡು ಹಿಡಿದು ಚುನಾವಣೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ ಪಡೆಯಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಜನಗಳು ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳಿ ಈ 5 ವರ್ಷವಾದರೂ ನಾವು ಮನೆ ಕೊಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿ 1 ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಕೊಟ್ಟರಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಈ ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ್ ಬಂಧುಗಳಿಗೆ ಈ ಬಿಡಿ ಕಾಲೋನಿ ಒಂದು 500 ಮನೆ ಕಟ್ತಕ್ಕಂತ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಯಾರೋ ಬಂದು ಭಾಷಣ ಮಾಡೋರು ಯಾಕಿದ್ರು ನನ್ನ ಸವಾಸ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಏನಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಪಾಪ ನನ್ನ ಚಡ್ಡಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾವ್ರೆ. ಕಾಕಿ ಚಡ್ಡಿ ಬಿಗಿಯಾಗಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋರು ಸದ್ಯ. ಕಾಕಿ ಚಡ್ಡಿದು ಯೋಗ್ಯತೆಗೆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನನ್ನ ಹತ್ರ ಮಾತನಾಡಿ ಅವ್ರ ತಾಯಿ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಮಾತು ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಈಗ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಹೋಗಲ್ಲ. ಅದ್ಯಾರೋ ನೆನಪು ಹೋಗ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅದೆಂತದೋ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೊಂದ್ಸಲ ಉಪವಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಆ ಮೆಕ್ಕಾದ ದೇವರು ಅವರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಹಳ ದಿನ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಆಸ್ತಿ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರಪ್ಪ ಅವರು. ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾರಿಗೆ ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ? ಅವರ ಆಸ್ತಿ 2,000 ಪಟ್ಟು ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿದೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 2,000 ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಆಸ್ತಿ ಸಂಪಾದನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜ್ ಅಂತ. ನನಗ್ಯಾರು ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದರಿಂದ ಆ ಮನೆ ಬಡವರಿಗೆ ಕಟ್ಟು ಕೊಡ್ರಪ್ಪ ಆಯ್ತು ಅಂದೆ. ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದು ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನ ಬಂಧುಗಳಿಗೆ ಇವ್ರ ಯೋಗ್ಯತೆ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕೊಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. ಇವತ್ತು ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು 4 ಕೋಟಿ ಮನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಜನತೆಗೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. 10 ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೋಟಿ ಹಣವನ್ನ ಮನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕಟ್ಟಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಕೊಡ್ತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಿರ್ಧಾರ ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರು ಇವತ್ತು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ ನನ್ನ ಬಂಧುಗಳು. ಅದರಿಂದ ಬಿಸಿಲು ಏರುತ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಪಾದಯಾತ್ರೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕಾರ್ಯಕರ್ತಗಳು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಉತ್ಸಾಹದಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀರಿ. ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿ ಚನ್ನಪಟ್ಟಣ ನನ್ನ ಜನತೆಗೆ ಮನವಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನರೇಂದ್ರ ಮೋದಿ ಅವರ ಮೂಢ ಹಗರಣದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಅವರು 15 ಸೈಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮದೇನಿಲ್ಲ. ಮೂಢ ಹಗರಣ ಏನಿದೆ ಇವತ್ತು ಯಾರ ದಲಿತರ ಭೂಮಿ ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟುಬಿಡಿ. ಕಾನೂನು ಬಾಹಿರವಾಗಿ ಅವರ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಹೆಸರಿಗೆ 14 ಸೈಟ್ ಏನು ಬರೆಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅದನ್ನ ಯಾವುದೇ ರೀತಿ ತಪ್ಪಿಸ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮಾತು ಹೇಳ್ತೀನಿ ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್ಗೆ. ಅದೇನೋ ನನ್ನ ಸಹೋದರನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಾನೇನೋ ಅವ್ರ ಹೆಂಡತಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಕೇಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ಸಿದ್ದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ನನ್ನಿಂದ ಏನಾದರೂ ಯಡಿಯೂರಪ್ಪನವರು ನಾನು ಅಧಿಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಾಗ ಯಾವುದೇ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಕುಟುಂಬದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಇಂತೇನಾದರೂ ಅಧಿಕಾರಿಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೂಚನೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ನಾನು ಕೇಸ್ ಹಾಕ್ಸಿದ್ದೇನೆ ಅಂತಕ್ಕಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ಪ್ರೂವ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ರಾಜಕೀಯದಿಂದ ನಿವೃತ್ತಿ ಹೊಂತೇನೆ ಅಂತ ಕೀಳುಮಟ್ಟದ ರಾಜಕಾರಣಿ ನಾನಲ್ಲ. ಇದನ್ನ ಶಿವಕುಮಾರ್ಗೆ ಹೇಳಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಬಯಸ್ತೀನಿ. ನಮಗೆ ಏನ್ ತೊಂದರೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆಯಾ ಗೊತ್ತು ನನಗೆ. ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ನಾನೇನು ಫಲಾನುವಾದ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ನನ್ನ ಜನತೆಗೆ ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿ ಮನವಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಅದ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಲ್ಲಿಲಿ ಕೂತ್ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ತಲೆ ಕೆಡಿಸ್ಕೊತೀವಿ. ಇವತ್ತೆಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿ. ನನಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು NDA ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಗೆಲ್ಲಬೇಕು. ಬಿಜೆಪಿ ಮತ್ತು JDS ನ ಸಮನ್ವಯ ಸಮಿತಿಯಿಂದ ದೆಹಲಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ತೀರ್ಮಾನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಆಗ ತೀರ್ಮಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ತಲೆಬಾಗಿ ಇವತ್ತು NDA ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿ ಗೆಲ್ಲಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಹೋರಾಟ ಇರಲಿ. ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನನ್ನ ವಂದನೆಗಳು.
ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಷ್ಟು ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಯೇ ಸೊಟ್ಟು ಮೇಲೆ ಸೊಟ್ಟು ಬೇಕಾ ಮುಖ್ಯಮಂತ್ರಿಯೇ ಹಾಳು ಮಾಡಿ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರಲ್ಲ ಜನರ ನಂಬಿಕೆ. ಹಗರಣ ಮಾಡುವುದು ನಿಮ್ಮ ವಾಡಿಕೆ. ಮಿತಿ ಮೀರಿ ಭ್ರಷ್ಟಾಚಾರ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಾಂಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಸರ್ಕಾರ. ರಾಜೀನಾಮೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಹೋಗಿ ಬಗಾರ.
ಅವನೇನಂತ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾನೆ? ನನ್ನ ಮಗನಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ ಅವನು?
ಫ್ಲೋರಿಂಗ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ,
ವಾವ್, ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಎಸ್, ನನಗೆ ಅದನ್ನೇ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ಬೇಕು ಅನಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಮೈ ಟೈಲ್ಸ್, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ವಾವ್ ಹೇಳುವಂತೆ ಮಾಡುವ ಟೈಲ್ಸ್.
Hi everybody, Mysore is one of the most revolutionary startups of India, and the reason why I call them revolutionary is because they have redefined the playbook of e-commerce in India. So much so that today, millions of small sellers who never thought of selling online are now shipping products all across India. Today, a Jhumka wala from Rajasthan is able to ship his products to the neighborhoods of Kashmir, and a clothing retailer from Maharashtra is shipping her t-shirts all the way to Kanyakumari. And you would be shocked to know that while e-commerce giants like Amazon and Flipkart have been burning cash in the Indian market, Mysore has already achieved profitability in the Indian market, and that too by empowering the smallest sellers of India. So by democratizing internet commerce for everyone in India, Mysore today has become a billion-dollar company.
Mysore has become really the alternative for the Flipkarts and the Amazons of the world.
I think more than 60% of our products are decently cheaper than any other marketplace.
It's a fast-growing e-commerce market. It targets smaller towns and cities.
Its rapid expansion and execution has helped it emerge as a challenger in India's e-commerce space.
Currently, Mysore is the only true marketplace which is horizontal and profitable as well.
Our vision is to enable 100 million small businesses in India to succeed online.
And you know why this is even more surprising? The average order value of Mysore is just 360 to 370 rupees, while for Amazon and Flipkart, they have close to 1000 rupees in AOV. On top of that, 65% of the products sold on Mysore are 20 to 30% cheaper as compared to their competition. But even then, somehow, Mysore has emerged as a profitable e-commerce unicorn in India, and that too in less than 10 years. And Mysore is growing so fast that while Amazon and Flipkart's active users grew by 13% and 21%, Mysore's active users as of December 23 grew by 32% year on year. And you would be shocked to know that the customer retention rate for Mysore is as high as 80%. So the burning question over here is, how on earth did Mysore manage to grow their business and achieve profitability in spite of the presence of Amazon and Flipkart? What exactly is their business strategy to achieve profitability in a hyper-competitive market like e-commerce? And most importantly, what are the business lessons that we need to learn from the profitable rise of Mysore? To understand Mysore, the first thing you need to understand is the e-commerce industry of India and the gap that Mysore identified. And we all know when e-commerce in India started catching fire, right?
Jio will give the power of data to each Indian to fulfill every dream and to collectively take India to global digital leadership.
1,000 mobile phones sold every minute, 7 t-shirts, 3 saris and 4 pairs of footwear sold every second. $5 billion worth of e-commerce sales and nearly 80 million shoppers across all platforms.
If we see the size of the Indian e-commerce market, today it stands at $112.93 billion, and it is expected to grow to $299 billion in the next 5 years. That's a staggering jump of 164%. But if you look at how much of this market has been scrapped out of the conventional retail, you will realize that e-commerce is just getting started in India. If you look at this chart, as of 2022, e-commerce has grown to reach just 8%, I repeat, 8% of the total retail market in 2022. So, 92% of this market is still left unpenetrated. And back then, when Flipkart and Amazon were riding the internet wave of India, they were primarily focused on tier 1 cities. And it does make sense, right? Tier 1 consumers have higher disposable incomes, they easily adopt to new technology, and there is enough logistics infrastructure in these cities which increases your probability of success. But you know what, guys? Most people forget that India is home to 60 million small and medium businesses that contribute to 85%. I repeat, 85% of the overall retail market. But even then, a large chunk of these people in tier 2, tier 3 cities back then had never used e-commerce. And even today, a large chunk of people have never used e-commerce at all. This was simply because they felt it was too costly and it was too complex. So both a large segment of buyers and sellers were unknowingly excluded from the e-commerce revolution of India. And this is where, ladies and gentlemen, the founders of Meesho, Sanjeev and Vidit, found a gap in the market. They realized that while everyone was bullish on tier 1 cities, the tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India were not being addressed properly by the e-commerce revolution of India. And they found 3 major pain points in the existing e-commerce industry back then. The first pain point was the cost of selling on these platforms. If you see, the cost of doing business on e-commerce platforms is very, very high. So if you look at this table, it shows how much a seller needs to pay in commission and services on different platforms. So sellers on Flipkart get 60% of their selling price, and on Amazon they get 70% of their selling price. So 30 to 40% of their selling price goes into just commissions, fees and GST. And this is a very high percentage for a small and medium-sized business. This is the reason why many small sellers refrain from selling online and they just focus on offline retail. This is the reason why a market of 63 million MSMEs were either struggling or were not selling on e-commerce at all. So long story short, the commissions were painful for the online sellers of India. This is the first gap that they found in the market. The second gap that they found was the low penetration of e-commerce in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And like I said, it was due to the lack of awareness and trust amongst the small sellers. And the third pain point that they found was that the payment cycles were as long as 14 days plus another 5 days for clearance. To tell you about it, if Mr. Ram is a seller on Flipkart and sells a 500 rupee t-shirt, he gets that 500 rupees in his account after deducting the commission after 14 plus 5, that is 19 days. So the sellers have to wait for 19 days to get their money in their account. Now you might say, bro, what is the big deal in this? This is how business is done, right? Well, let me tell you what is the impact of this 19-day credit cycle on a small business owner, and then you tell me whether it looks like a big pain or not. Let's say Mr. Ram invests 4 lakhs into his raw materials and then sells products at the end of the week to generate 5 lakhs in revenue. Now, if he gets this 5 lakh rupees on the same day, he can take home 1 lakh rupees and reinvest 4 lakhs for the next week's raw materials. But if he gets paid after 3 weeks, then for week 2 and week 3, he has to deploy another 4 lakhs plus 4 lakhs for 2 weeks just to keep his production going. Or he will have to halt his production for 19 days, wait for the 5 lakh rupee payment to come, and then he has to start his manufacturing again. And this is obviously not practical, right? You can't just shut the factory for 19 days. So in this case, what will Ram do? He will either have to deploy 8 lakhs in extra working capital, or Mr. Ram will have to take out a bank loan of 8 lakh rupees and then he will have to pay an interest of 10 to 12%, which degrades his profitability. This is the cost of the 19-day payment cycle in the life of an MSME owner. So to sum this up, what were the gaps in the market? High commissions, low penetration due to lack of awareness and trust, and very long payment cycle. This is the reason why in 2015, Sanjeev and Vidit decided to start a company that we all know today as Meesho. And their vision was to democratize internet commerce for everyone by empowering the small sellers of India with the convenience of e-commerce and the superpower of e-commerce supply chain. At the same time, they also wanted to empower the buyers of India with affordable pricing, an easy interface, and the accessibility of a vast catalog. And fast forward to today, which is 9 years later, Meesho has more than 1.8 million sellers selling more than 120 million products. And like we said before, today products on Meesho are 20 to 30% cheaper than other e-commerce websites. So now the question is, when Amazon and Flipkart both had the first mover advantage, how did Meesho crack the e-commerce industry of India and become profitable? Well, this is a story that dates back to 2015 when Vidit and Sanjeev saw a shopkeeper at a garment store in Koramangala who sold his products using a WhatsApp group. And they were shocked to know that 40% of the store sales were coming from WhatsApp group itself. So you know what they did? They thought of making WhatsApp groups to empower these retail shopkeepers to sell more. And they did it with a company named Fashneer. But soon enough, they realized that managing commerce on WhatsApp was not practical for 2 reasons. Number one, most of the times these shops were out of stock, and even then the customers used to place orders. So the shopkeepers had no option but to apologize to the customers for not having enough stock. And secondly, cash on delivery turned out to be a big pain. Why? Because during that time, UPI and Paytm like apps were not normal. So the delivery person would pick up the order, deliver it to the customer, take the cash, go back to the seller and then give that cash. So the logistics cost of cash itself was very high and the hassle was too much. So in 2016, they revamped this model and moved from WhatsApp group to an app. and this time they called it Meesho 1.0. So this was basically a B2B2C model. So if Mr. Shyam is a garment reseller who wanted to sell to his customers, he would use Meesho to order products from his supplier and then sell to his customers. So Meesho was a platform for businesses to sell to customers offline. So it was a B2B2C model. And this model was doing very well. But soon enough, customers all across India started adopting to e-commerce after COVID. And within no time, many people discovered Meesho through word of mouth. And eventually, the customers started buying directly from the sellers on Meesho. So now, instead of Mr. Shyam buying it to resell to his customers offline, his offline customers directly started buying from Meesho. So Meesho transitioned from a B2B2C model to a B2C model where customers bought directly from Meesho. And today, Meesho is majorly a B2C business. So now the question is, Meesho became just like any other e-commerce platform, right? Because even Flipkart and Amazon did the same. So what exactly was different about Meesho? Well, if you understand this difference, you will automatically get a deeper insight into their business model. Firstly, unlike other marketplaces where sellers only get 60 to 70% of their selling price in their hand, Meesho charges 0% commission with a small fulfillment fee, which depends on the region that the seller is based out of. So if you list your product on Flipkart for 1000 rupees, as we saw in this table, you will get only 600 rupees on Flipkart, and on Amazon, you will get 700 rupees. But on Meesho, you will get the whole amount with a slight deduction of the fulfillment fee. So now the question is, if Meesho doesn't make money from sellers, then how does Meesho generate revenue? Well, Meesho monetizes their platform through performance advertising by its sellers. So if you're a seller on Meesho, you do not have to pay any commission or an upfront platform fee.
Never make the cut.
You can make the cut, you can style it right, so get it done, get it right.
You will never make the cut.
Gotta watch your steps, stay fly, just show them how it's done, how it's getting done time. Show them how it's done, show them, show them, show them, show them how it's done.
But as sellers, you can choose to advertise your products on the Meesho platform. So just like your performance marketing on Instagram and YouTube, you as sellers can select a product from your catalog, allocate an advertising budget, and select the duration for the ad. And then you can choose to target your customers with this ad to increase your sales. And here's where you need to understand the different pricing models of performance marketing. In simple words, these pricing models can be named as CPV, CPC, CPA, and CPM. CPV is the cost per view model, wherein the platform charges the advertiser each time the ad is viewed. So the cost is based on the viewership of the ad. CPC is cost per click model, wherein the advertisers pay for each time someone clicks on their ad. So in CPC, the focus of the advertiser is more on converting the customer rather than brand awareness. Thirdly, we have the CPA model or cost per action model, wherein the advertisers only pay when a specific action such as a sale, download or sign up is completed. And lastly, we have the CPM model, which is cost per milli or cost per 1000 impressions. So in this model, advertisers pay for every 1000 impressions of their advertisement, and this model is again used for brand awareness. So when it comes to Meesho, it mostly depends on the CPC model to charge the sellers. Why? Because these small sellers are more concerned with conversion rather than brand awareness. To give you a deeper understanding of the same, let's say Mr. Ram, who sells men's garments, wants to increase his sales of a particular type of shirts. So he can select this shirt specifically for an ad campaign, and Meesho will move his catalog to the top of all discovery pages. So whenever a customer searches for t-shirts, Ram's catalog will be promoted and it will be recommended to the customer. So along with organic listings, even Ram's products will appear more often. So it's almost like Google listing its sponsored ads ahead of all the organic listing. And this is something that you'll see on Amazon also, whereby amongst all the organically listed products, there are some products that are sponsored products, as in For these products, the advertiser has paid money to Amazon such that those products could appear more often in front of the customers. So amongst many organically listed products, you will see some products that are sponsored. But this brings up another important question. Does it mean that the other sellers who do not pay for advertising are treated unfairly? Well, not at all, because if Mysore or any other platform does that, they will incur losses themselves. Which is why Mysore maintains a healthy percentage of 15 to 20% for ad listing and the rest are organic. And for this advertising, Ram can allocate a budget. For example, if Ram is setting a budget of 10,000 rupees, then Ram will only be charged if his advertisement gets clicks, shares, or if this product is added to the wish list. And if there are no clicks and just views, then Ram will not be charged at all. And after this campaign is done, Ram can use his campaign analytics to choose how he wants to modify his campaign if he wants more return on investment. Now, do you realize this way, Mysore has made performance marketing accessible to the smallest vendors of India. And this is what makes them a major driver of the digital revolution of India. Cherry on the cake, Mysore also has something called the supplier panel to assist the sellers. So the sellers get recommendation from the panel, and this panel helps them get recommendations. For example, their price recommendation tool helps the sellers set prices, gives them information on what is the average selling price of other sellers in the same category, and Mysore even tells them which products sell well during a particular season so that the sellers can stock up their inventory accordingly. This is how Mysore has empowered the small and medium sellers of India. And the fun fact is that even manufacturers make up 55% of the sellers on the platform. And today, Mysore has 120 million average monthly active users, and it is the fastest growing e-commerce platform in India. And you know what, guys? This unique and bold business model gave Mysore two incredible advantages. Firstly, since the platform has zero commission, sellers often pass on the savings to the customer. For example, if the original selling price of the product is 1,000 rupees and a seller incurs a 30% commission on it, it would sell for 1,300 rupees, right? But on Mysore, the seller doesn't incur this 300 rupee commission at all and is able to sell it at 1,100 rupees. Whereas on other platforms, the same product is available at 1,300 rupees. And this 300 rupee difference is where the magic is. Because do you realize, India is a country where 80% of the people make less than 30,000 rupees a month. So a 200 to 250 rupees price difference is a very big deal for this customer base. So guess what? This delta in price results in a large pool of customers deliberately choosing Mysore over other platforms. As a result, Mysore acquires more customers. These customers buy more from sellers, eventually resulting into more sales. And this further encourages more sellers to come on the platform, which again gets more customers on the platform. This is the first differentiator of Mysore, which is a zero commission model and the revenue model that is based on performance marketing. The second differentiator of Mysore is that they have reduced the payment cycle for these sellers from 19 days to just 7 days. Now, what is the benefit of this? Well, let's understand this using Mr. Ram's context. Earlier, if you remember, Mr. Ram got paid after 19 days. So he either had to put in 4 lakhs in week 2 and 4 lakhs in week 3, or he had to take out a loan of 8 lakh rupees in working capital for week 2 and week 3. But now, with a 7-day payment cycle, Mr. Ram will have his 4 lakh rupees in working capital for next week at the end of week 1 itself. So he won't have to put in another 8 lakhs in extra working capital, and he doesn't need to borrow 8 lakhs from the bank and then pay a 10 to 12% interest. So do you realize this is a very big deal for the small sellers of India? And most importantly, the third differentiation of Mysore is that they do not compete with their own sellers. Which means what? Just like Amazon launched Amazon Basics, Flipkart has launched Flipkart Smart Buy. So if you see, by launching these products, these e-commerce platforms are competing with their own sellers. But Mysore does not have any private labels to compete with its own sellers at all. In fact, if you see this table, Amazon has more than 110 private labels like Amazon Basics and Amazon Essentials. Flipkart has 14 plus private labels like Marquee and Smart Buy, whereas Mysore has 0 private labels. Now you might say, bro, how is this a big deal? Well, let me tell you guys that the margins in private label brands for e-commerce platforms are sometimes double as that from sellers. In fact, you would be shocked to know that the margins in private label brands could go as high as 60 to 65% also. So even though there is a profit to be made, Mysore does not have private labels. And this is because Mysore wants to stick to its vision of empowering the small and medium scale business owners to build their business rather than competing with them. And they believe that with this philosophy, they'll be able to make more profit as as compared to competing with their own sellers. Fourthly, Meesho has an asset-light model unlike other e-commerce platforms like Amazon and Flipkart. So as usual, let's understand this with an example briefly. So if you look at the e-commerce models across the world, you will see that there are two types of models. The first is the inventory model and the other is the marketplace model. For example, let's say you sell books on a platform called Tramazon. Let's say it takes you 200 rupees to produce this book and you sell this book on Tramazon at 500 rupees. Now, if Tramazon operates with the marketplace model, so all that Tramazon will do is just list your products on its platform, and after the customer places the order, Tramazon will collect the product from you and then take it to the customer using Tramazon logistics. So in this story, if you see, Tramazon is only acting as a listing platform and a logistics partner, right? This is what you call as a marketplace model, whereby the platform merely helps you list and ship your products to the customer. And in return, the platform charges you a fulfillment fee plus marketplace commissions. But if you look at the inventory model, in this model, what Tramazon would do is, it would directly buy 10,000 books from you in bulk and pay you 300 rupees per book. Now, because you're getting to sell your books in bulk, instead of 500 rupees, you would agree to sell it to Tramazon at 300 rupees. And just like you, many other sellers will sell their products at a lower price to Tramazon because they are buying in bulk. And then you know what Tramazon would do? Tramazon would sell these products at whatever price they want. So today they might sell it for 400 rupees and tomorrow they might put up a 20% discount and sell the same product at 320 rupees. And sometimes they might even provide a lightning deal at just 305 rupees. And this time, when someone places the order, Tramazon would just ship this product from its warehouse instead of collecting it from you. So this is how the inventory model works, whereby the platform itself collects inventory from the seller and then ships it to the customer from its own inventory. In this case, while Amazon and Flipkart use hybrid models, which is a mix of both inventory and marketplace model, Meesho primarily operates only with marketplace model. And this is what gives them three major advantages. Number one, they do not have to worry about procuring products in bulk from sellers, so they do not have to make heavy investments into buying or storing inventory. Number two, they do not have to worry about changing the prices and optimizing for sales. And lastly, they do not have to worry about dead or waste inventory. This is how they remain asset light, so less investment, less hassle and less wastage. Now, this is not to say that a platform cannot make profit using inventory model. It's just that different platforms have different philosophies. In case of Meesho, it has an asset-light philosophy. And this is what brings us to the fifth differentiator of Meesho, which is they do not do seller tiering. For those who don't know, seller tiering means prioritizing a certain group of sellers over others based on their performance. So the better you perform, the better benefits you get. For example, Flipkart has gold, silver and bronze. So you will be categorized in these categories based on your performance in the last 90 days. And if you fall in gold, you will get benefits like 20% discount on shipping, payment cycles will reduce to 7 days from 15 days, and your visibility will increase. Eventually, you will also get better support from Flipkart. Similarly, if you go down to silver, you will get a little less benefits. And for bronze, it is even lesser. Now, you might say, bro, what exactly is the problem with this model? Because if you're incentivized based on your performance and you're given benefits, then that's great, right? Well, on the outset, yes, this does look fantastic. But if you look at this model from a new seller standpoint, then it gets a little difficult. So for a new seller, it will be very difficult to outpace someone who is already in the gold category, because the gold seller will keep getting better terms to grow their business. So because of this, it seems as though the gap between the big sellers and the small sellers will keep on increasing. And if you look at Amazon, some 33 Amazon sellers accounted for about 33% of all the goods sold on the company's website. And that means a few sellers are prioritized over a big chunk of small sellers. And this has also led to a lot of legal litigations against Amazon. But when it comes to Meesho, Meesho does not prioritize a few sellers over others. They treat all their sellers equally. And because of this, they've been able to attract a lot of sellers from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And lastly, Meesho has worked heavily in reducing their logistics cost for the sellers. And since the AOV on Meesho is anywhere between 300 to 350 rupees, the sellers with such low AOV, they feel the pinch when they have to incur 60 to 70 rupees in shipping and even more in reverse shipping when the products are returned. So Meesho reduced the cost of shipping from 30% of the average order value to around 15 to 20% of the average order value. And it further plans to reduce this number to just 8 to 10% of the average order value. So now the question is, how are they able to do it? Very simple. They are able to do it because of 3 reasons. Number 1, Meesho has the scale of 3 to 3.5 million shipments a day. Secondly, they have outsourced their entire logistics to third-party logistics partners. And thirdly, Meesho's share in the overall outsourced e-commerce logistics market is about 40 to 45%. So in short, Meesho is actually increasing the asset utilization of all these logistics partners. As a result, Meesho is able to negotiate better prices with these partners. And secondly, Meesho's customers are not looking for same day or next day delivery. If you remember from our quick commerce case study, Meesho's customers choose Meesho for value and not for convenience. Secondly, Meesho's customers are not looking for same day or next day delivery. So since goods are transferred in large volumes, the vehicle in logistics utilization is more than 80%. So the cost is brought down with scale and volume of products per shipment and better negotiation due to Meesho's scale. This is how, by tapping into the tier 2, tier 3 cities of India, by solving the most important pain point of the MSMEs in India, by building an asset-light marketplace model combined with zero commission and a super efficient logistics partnering, Meesho has built a profitable billion-dollar company in spite of the cutthroat competition in the e-commerce industry of India. And the result? Well, the word of mouth spread, so Meesho got customers without ad spend. As a result, their customer acquisition cost went down. And because of cost efficiency, their overall SG&A expenses reduced from 53% of revenue to 20% in H1 FY 23-24. And eventually, the revenue soared to give them more profits. And now, to go up with Meesho, Flipkart has launched Flipkart Shopsy and Amazon has announced the launch of Amazon Bazaar. This is the story of Meesho's robust and bold business model. And before we dive into the lessons, I wanted to discuss something very, very important. People, a few days ago, I put up a community post asking about your experience with Meesho. Some of you mentioned common issues in Meesho and the e-commerce industry in general, which was about product quality, returns and refunds. So to understand this better, I reached out to Meesho directly to see how they are solving these problems, because this is something even D2C brands face on a daily basis. So they shared some interesting strategies like barcoded packaging, scan and pack programs and many such cases where they use technology to build trust and solve the problems in their supply chain. And all thanks to these strategies, Meesho's return success rate stands at 96%, and on an average, refunds are processed within just 25 minutes of the pickup, with the majority of them being processed in just 5 minutes. Additionally, last year, Meesho released something called the Trust Assurance Report, which explains how Meesho has actually solved the most common problems of e-commerce using simple and effective strategies. So if you're a Meesho customer, seller, or if you're building your own marketplace business, this report is incredibly insightful. I'll attach the link to the blog in the description, so go through it and let me know what you think. If this is clear to you, let's move on to the business lessons that we need to learn from the rise of Meesho. Lesson number 1. When you have giant competition in the market, the best way to build a business is to build a business in the blue ocean. In this case, Meesho's blue ocean were the tier 2, tier 3 cities of India. Lesson number 2. The tier 2 and tier 3 cities of India have a massive potential that a lot of people neglect. So if you can build a business here, it's a blue ocean that is just waiting to be tapped. And lastly, Jack Ma once said that you might be the shark in the ocean, but I am the crocodile of the Yangtze River. In this case, while the giants of e-commerce focused on tier 1, tier 2 cities and the big sellers of India, Meesho turned out to be a savior for the small sellers of India and for the manufacturers of India. And this turned out to be the greatest advantage for Meesho to become a profitable billion-dollar e-commerce company in India. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
और ऑर्डर्स लेट नाइट होगी तो किचन में, डिलीवरीज में, पीरियड्स में समझ लो पीरियड्स भूल ही गई, क्योंकि स्टे फ्री सिक्योर एक्सेल की लीग लॉक टेक्नोलॉजी दे 12 घंटों तक प्रोटेक्शन। स्टे फ्री सिक्योर एक्सेल, दिन तुम्हारे साथ चलेगा।
3, 2, 1, action!
Cheers! Hey Sky, next game nandu.
Sorry, my console, my rules.
Idu gully cricket alla. EP toss hakona. Longer EP wins. Go. ಅರೆ ಚೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡ, ಚೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾನೆ. ನಾನು ನೋಡಿದೆ, ಸರ್ ಕೂಡ ಈಗ ನೋಡಿದ್ರು.
ಲಾಂಗ್ ನಾನ್ ಸ್ಟಿಕ್ಕಿ ವೆಜೀಸ್ ನೊಂದಿಗೆ ಎಪಿ ಆಗಿದೆ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದ ಚಾಯ್ಸ್.
At the OYO setting, I am the least educated, I am the least experienced, and I am the least probably proven talent in the management team.
Ritesh Agarwal, founder and CEO of OYO Rooms.
His story is the stuff that legends are made of.
Definitely one of the biggest success stories in that travel and tourism.
So a company that was growing triple-digit percentages year on year, overnight, the company lost 70% of its revenues.
After we did the Shark Tank episode, I got 2 or 3 lengthy emails saying that, OYO has taken all my money, they have not returned our money, we're not able to cope up.
Some newspapers actually at the slightest hint that there was any challenge would actually write a news story about it as an outcome saying OYO Pakka is going to not exist.
Paul Graham said that you should do things that don't scale.
My view is similar, but probably slightly unique to our business or what I have learned over the years. Founder-driven companies end up creating more value than only professional-driven companies. Education and formal university should not be seen as the same thing.
When did Peter Thiel Fellowship happen? Did this happen after you started O-Level or before?
Well, I think I'll tell you the long story.
Before we move ahead, I want to quickly thank our partners of today's episode, and that is universityliving.com. People, did you know 6.4 million students go abroad each year and they face one major and expensive problem, which is housing. Uniliving isn't just another accommodation provider, but it's a community-based, content-led, tech-enabled, global student housing managed marketplace. From sorting out your accommodation to your university fees to rental payments all the way to booking your air tickets, they have everything from start to end. It's an ultimate study abroad buddy. With a diverse range of options like private apartments, purpose-built student accommodation and homestays, Uniliving caters to every student's unique needs and preferences. All the properties are 100% safe and verified by University Living, which ensures a secured environment for students to live and study. With their user-friendly platform, you can find your dream accommodation in just a few clicks. Plus, their advanced AI tools like the cost of living calculator and study abroad buddy will help you plan your budget and will help you get personalized guidance. So if this sounds interesting to you, check the link in the description and get 10% off on their services. Hi Ritesh. This podcast is very special for me. Why? Because like I told you, I started following you 7 years back when I saw you deliver a talk at IIM. So during that time, I never thought I'll become an entrepreneur, but the aspiration that I had is, if at all I become successful, one day I should be able to talk like this guy. So it's a very big deal, and during that time I would have never thought that I would meet you in my house. So thank you so much for coming. It means a lot.
No, Ganesh, first off, thank you for having me here. You may remember we first met at the sidelines of Shark Tank, and I remember thinking that you have substantial amount of detail. And you also mentioned that you had made case studies. So after that, I've been watching those case studies, and it is incredible the level of detail that you go into. So I would actually say that you speak probably in a manner that now I aspire to speak as clearly as you do than the other way around. But thank you for having me, and thanks for the great khana. I'd love coming back here as much as I can because of the great food.
You're most welcome, man. Thank you so much. Ritesh, a lot of people know you as the founder of OYO. And after doing 2 to 3 podcasts, what I realized is that the entrepreneur is known for his successful venture, but he's actually a result of the learnings that he has acquired from the failed ventures. And when I did my research, I found that you were selling SIM cards to earn money. Why were you selling SIM cards?
Look, I talked about it recently in Nikhil's podcast, but today I'll use this opportunity to go far deeper into this. We are a family of 4 siblings. I'm the youngest of the lot. The elder 3 are sort of Asian parents' dream. Engineers, 2 of them went to business school, got good jobs, married in time. So every tick mark that you can imagine. I was always a little bit of the rebel you may consider with or without a cause. So I always wanted to try and do something new. So when I was in my 3rd or 4th grade, I saw that there was probably the first computer that came to school, and there was a lot of enthusiasm around it. Only students above 6th or 7th grade were allowed to use it. So my life's mission became, how can I sort of get access to it sooner? So I would reach out to the computer teacher who had nothing to do with me, and I would say ki mujhe sikha do, like, can I learn a little bit? Can I do something about helping you to do your job? And eventually, as life would have it, I learned some basic programming. I was able to get access to the computer lab sooner. So I was constantly, this kid was trying to do something new, something different. And you'll always find them in a classroom. In a classroom, there will always be those few kids who are constantly thinking, mujhe kuch alag karna hai, I have to do something different. I was always that kid. Now, I heard the word entrepreneurship for the first time when I was also still in my 3rd or 4th grade. Between me and my eldest sister, there's probably almost 8 years or a higher age difference, 8 years roughly. So मैं शायद 3rd या 4th grade में होऊंगा, and she had just got into her +2. So in Odisha, a lot of students go to the +2 format of education, not the 11th and 12th grade equivalent. So she goes to her +2, and then they have an event, which is an entrepreneurship event. So she's back from her college, and she says, we have an entrepreneurship event. I had never heard about this word. So I go figure out the dictionary and I read about the word. I remember hazily, it said, entrepreneurs are people who solve problems and create a business around it. I thought, ye theek hai, this is what I want to become. Not because what it meant was interesting, just because it was something new. And then sort of came this perspective of SIM card, right? So telecom was in its rapid growth phase in India. The only telecom service provider available, maybe before the early 2000s in places like Odisha, was BSNL. There used to be a BSNL telephone exchange. People would go there, receive SIM cards, things like those. Very expensive to use. I think Airtel was one of those challenger companies which was just getting started. It was a startup at that point of time, which was wanting to disrupt the broader telecom arena by making it easy to get SIM cards in the hands of people or telephones in the hand of people, making it cheaper for them, and while making sure that the experience is of high quality. So let me give some examples of what that period was like. So around the time when I started selling SIM cards, for every month of validity, you needed to spend 200 rupees of recharge time. Okay. So just for a validity. That's when they launched a program called Airtel Lifetime Prepaid, where they said, now you have lifetime prepaid, right? So zindagi bhar ke liye you can continue. So you need to only buy talk time. You don't need to buy any more validity. Weirdly, when I started Oyo again, I thought that the 999 program worked very well for me when I sold SIM cards. So Oyo started at 999.
Okay, what do you mean 999?
Price of the
price.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you remember back in the day when Oyo had started, our advertisements used to be you get a clean, comfortable room starting at 999.
Oh, so Airtel was also selling these SIM cards at a lifetime prepaid cost of 999.
Correct.
Okay.
Then I'll give you another example. You'd see a lot of little stores have the red signages of Airtel, right? Red color backlit signages. I used to sit on the back of little vans and take these signages to install them on the shops who I was selling SIM cards to. That inspired me to sort of, when I was starting Oyo, now when you drive around India, it's impossible to miss an Oyo signage. That inspired me to put the red Oyo signages on our hotels. So while it may seem like it was just a 2-year summer holidays thing of SIM cards, it left a lasting impact on me and my decisions over a period in my lifetime. I started doing this in my 6th grade during summer school, summer holidays, partly because there was nothing much to do and I was this rebel who wanted to try and do everything new I could. Telecom was new, telecom was exciting. It was the closest that any business in a town like Raigada, where I come from, came to having any access to technology. So I thought, kuch naya hai, I want to do something about it, and I enjoyed every part of it. And I think I can go on probably for an hour about how experiences there have changed my life. But I think if I have to summarize them, understanding the small business owner in India, I think would not have happened if not for my Airtel stint. Because if you see global telecom companies, they mostly distribute using their own retail stores, right? So you'll see AT&T stores, Sprint stores, and so on. India is probably one of those rare markets. I would say Indian companies have then gone and replicated this in Africa, where the distribution is not through their own retail stores. It's through the kirana shops, the telecom stores. Now, of course, internet is also adding in, but still a large part of the distribution still happens through, general trade, where kirana stores, small telephone shops are the ones retailing out SIM cards, mobile phones, and so on. And I think my time period of selling SIM cards for Airtel taught me this.
How much money did you make out of it?
Well, I don't remember, but what I do remember is the first time I made a 2,000 rupee income by selling a few SIM cards. I came and gave to my mom and I said, this is my first income. As you know, you're naive and innocent, and my mom still has it with her.
Really?
She still has that 2,000 rupees. I was
Wow.
recently, we were moving houses, and mom was moving something, and in one of them she pulled out and she showed the same 2,000 rupees that she has from back then. So I think, like the first earning is special, as you can imagine. Similarly, at OYO, our first client, I've been searching her for my lifetime. I've still not found her. There was this client who came in. They were performing at a Gurgaon event center, and this was a group of artists, and they spent 70,000 rupees to book 3 nights, take over the full hotel. I still have the printout of that check. Like, I took a Xerox. I, of course, banked that check because 70,000 was very important then. But I have that framed with me, the printout. So I think the first earnings, personally and for your business, are always the most special. But I think if there is one suggestion I have for anyone who wants to be in consumer business in India, is please be in general trade in some form or the other, whether it is selling packaged products, telecom, doesn't matter. But if you are able to appreciate the small business owner, the small shop owner, and how they think about the user, I think your abilities will be disproportionately higher. I feel the Gumtiwala, who has a little shop, probably understands more about the customer than even some of our own algorithms where we send CRM notifications and so on. And I think my aspiration remains that how can we replicate that by using technology.
So from what I make out of this is that small business owners, because they are in direct contact with the customers, they're able to understand the pain and interest of the customers much better as compared to the larger companies. So my question is, when you were this small business owner, what did you know that you wish Airtel knew about the customers?
Yeah, I think I would just say 2 things, right? I think the small business owner has actually 3 superpowers in my mind, which allows India as a unique market where I think there have been probably 5 different scenarios in the last 20 years where people have said kiranas and the small businesses are dead. And they've all sprung back, and they've sprung back with force and reinventing themselves. I think the first strength that the small businesses bring that you mentioned is they have deep relationships with their customers. The second is that the entrepreneurial spirit of the small shop owner in India or the small business owner in India is unparalleled. They work 24/7. Your viewers may have a lot of people whose parents run small shops. They would probably have taken no holiday in their life.
Yeah.
Like, they would not take any holiday because they don't want to keep their shop shut. It is so popular that in the north, you would say that very rarely anybody would say that शाम को दुकान बंद करके घर आते हैं. Nobody would say कि दुकान बंद करेंगे. The real word, the word people use is दुकान बढ़ा के आ जाओ. Because it's so important to them that a shop should not close. If a shop is open, it is open all the time. So that sense of ki my life and death is linked to this one shop is an entrepreneurial spirit. Right or wrong is a personal choice of the business person, but I think that makes a huge, like, no big company can compete with that. And I think the third one is a loyal set of people who are willing to work with them through thick and thin. Because, you know, every shop owner you'll find that they would have 2-3 ekdam like loyal people who have been with them through and through across generations. बच्चों से भी दोस्ती है, यारों से भी सब कुछ. I think that's the third thing that makes small business owners successful. What did I know that Airtel did not know? I think, first off, I think I owe a lot to Airtel and people like Ajay Puri, Manoj Kohli, who were, Ajay used to be CEO of Airtel Odisha at that point of time. He did very well at Airtel. I think recently, has retired from Airtel. And Manoj, of course, came to work at SoftBank later. I think I have learned so much from them. So I owe a lot of what I have learned to my SIM card selling days. But I think if I have to share about one or two things that I think Airtel did not know, the first is I think Airtel had a particular focus on a set of shop owners. Their particular focus was any shop owner which was in electrical or anything to do with some form of electronics or technology, they could be better distributors or sales companies. Whereas I focused almost significantly on the Kirana shops, because I saw that Kirana shops had significant frequency of usage. In telecom, giving the SIM card is actually the easiest part of the job. The real job is the ARPU, which is making sure that they can have regular recharges.
Yeah.
And I thought that if we were able to focus a lot more on Kirana stores, we'll be able to make a bigger difference. I don't know if Airtel knew it or not, but I think in my town, I was a lot more focused on this segment. The second is more than money. Emotional validation mattered more to my retail partners. And I'll give some secondary example of it. So Airtel would always have what is called a trade scheme. It's a very popular word in general trade. So it would say that if you sell 5 SIM cards, you'd get this much as a bonus. If you sell 20, you get this as a bonus. I replaced one of those from cash to kind.
Okay.
So instead of getting cash at 5 SIM cards, you would receive a dinner with your wife at the only hotel that Raigada had. Now that only hotel was actually a 2-star hotel. But I think for our town, it was the only 5-star hotel, to be honest. And I sent letters to all their houses saying there is this dinner option. What it led to is this becoming a family discussion where the husband or the wife of whoever is running the shop would ask the other partner saying, by when are you going to be able to sell these 5 SIM cards? Because we might as well go to this dinner. So I think these little things made a difference, which I think maybe Airtel knew. But I think more than that, at least I was able to be creative enough to say I will come up with ideas that matters to my store owners and their families and be able to work with them to make them successful.
And this also saves cost.
This saves cost, of course.
Because a dinner is a much more cheaper kind option to give to somebody rather than giving them cash.
I think so. And you can also, of course, negotiate with the restaurant owner to get a better deal at volumes. But it's also something that people can flaunt, right? Like
exactly.
Out of 300 store owners, the 5 who went to the restaurant would say, like I was called to go to the restaurant to be able to have dinner because I had a great outcome. So I think, people appreciation is as or more important than monies. But I think that's one of the things that you can never have enough of or give enough of, even in in any other business setting also. So I think that's one thing that is one that I reflect on myself, saying how can I do more of it myself as well.
This is so interesting, man. Do you mind if I give you an exercise?
No, I don't. Okay. Let's do it.
वो देना तो दाल समरखंड. Okay, so Ritesh, here's a exercise. Okay.
Looks like an ITC box.
This is actually my friend's father's company.
Okay.
It's called Dal Samarkhand, and
nice.
they sell one of the best dal makhnis in Delhi.
Amazing.
Okay, and all the Bollywood actors also have it.
Nice.
Now, if you were the owner of this company, and you go to a Kirana store, what are 3 or 4 questions that you would ask to gain customer insights?
Oh, good.
Have a look at this first.
I would love to, yes. It's good. It says, a companion every naan and roti deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is very interesting. So what are the questions I would ask a store owner? And then I'll give you some insights that I have by looking at this.
Okay.
The first bit I would often ask is saying that what kind of a shop owner am I going to? I would ideally like to go to a shop owner who has at least some kind of demand, because this fits 2 or 3 TGs, right? It fits the standard grocery TG कि आप दाल लेने जा रहे हैं. If you are going to have dal, you probably, or equivalent, that you want to try and sort of say that this is probably the mass premium version of dal that I have, which you don't need to cook. Second TG that is directly connected to this is the young millennials. No time to cook, done a lot of food ordering. Someday I want to feel like I want to cook. It's not really cooking, but anything that feels like cooking works. So is there a store where millennials often come? It may have nothing to do with food, but I'd still want to display it there. And the third, and I think this is an important one, is anything boutique or gourmet, where I feel like I could position this product as being relevant, high quality, or something interesting. Like you also called out that a lot of Bollywood actors use this product. It just tells you that, this has influence in sort of the higher strata in the society, and hence can it impact a lot of other audiences to purchase. So that's the first question I'd ask, that aapke paas, do you have one of these 3 segments of users? Do you have millennials, as in do you have, or college students, like do you have, SIM card sales? Do you have book sales? So anything in SIM cards, maybe more electronic types. Of course, the grocery is a much simpler one. And the third is, of course, anything that has influence, like a boutique shop, which could be anything like one of the D2C, or a bunch of D2C products if they're there in your retail store. For example, I used to live in Vatika in Gurgaon. And right outside of that, there was a little convenience store. And the convenience store mostly stocked products which were made by small businesses, but were made for the premium segment, much like this one.
Acha, okay.
Right? Like, they had rice which was grown by farmers and then was packaged by a small D2C company. And it's like I used to always call it as D2C only convenience store, where there were only D2C new age brands that I could find.
Okay.
But anyway, long story short, I think this is the first question I'd ask. The second is, I think if you think about it in terms of the price segment, this is 250 rupees. It's not cheap by any magnitude. So it's important that the customers that are coming have a salary of anywhere upwards of 6 lakh rupees.
Okay.
Because below 5 to 6 lakh rupees, I think a lot of people are going to look at it, say that this looks lovely, but should I spend it? Maybe they'll also spend a few times, but they're not going to be my regular users. And I'm a big believer of lifetime value. So I would ask that how many customers in the shop come. I'll not ask 5 to 6 lakh rupees because the shop owner wouldn't know this, but I would rather ask more like what kind of people come. If they say businessmen, or they say that they are, people who work in government jobs, or they're people who, like any direction where I feel like there is some level of affluence that exists, then I would possibly like to focus a lot more. And the third, and this is a very important one, there is a very important concept called in-store placement.
In-store placement,
right?
Yeah.
When you come to a shop, there are 3 or 4 places where the customer will almost 100% times see what's going on, right? So right above the shopkeeper's head, you'd see that often there will be a rack full of stuff, and there will be very nicely few things stacked in the area where the shopkeeper themselves is sitting. That's very important, because whatever consumer sees there is more often than not what the customer is wanting to buy. So I would like to see whether the shop has a good in-store placement place, because if it has the kind of demand segment of users that I want, if it has the affluence of customers I want, then all my job is to put a proposition of my product at a place where every customer can see and ask, "Ye Samarkand kya hai?" Right? So I think these are the 3 things I would do to be able to gain insights before I come in. But I'll tell you one insight from my side. Samarkand, as you know, is in Uzbekistan. That's right, no? Uzbekistan, I think. Yes.
Okay.
Lot of invaders to India came from Uzbekistan, but that's besides the story. Uzbekistan is less than, I'm in the travel business. I was giving all kind of knowledge about retail business, which I'm not in. I was doing this like ages ago. But coming back, I think Uzbekistan is less than a 3-hour flight and is an incredibly beautiful country. I have never been there, But I just met someone who's lived in Uzbekistan for 2 years and told me about some incredible historical stories about Samarkand and Uzbekistan. And I feel like it's a story that viewers should study at some point of time. What I would do is use those stories also to sell this product, to talk about how Indian ancient history and food and delicacies that we have has an ancient connection to some of these countries. Probably they named it with that context as well. So I would probably try and use that storytelling also.
Very interesting. We should show this to Shlok. He'll be very happy. Ritesh, you know, now that you mentioned that in-store placement is important, I still so vividly remember that every time we went inside the grocery store, there are two places that I look. One is, like you pointed out, right above the head of the shopkeeper, and the other is the glass. Because you go inside, somebody's buying something, the first thing you do is look down. And the moment you look down, there you have a bunch of chocolates. And some chocolates are very interesting. In fact, some of the best chocolates that I've discovered are chocolates that I could find on that glass table.
Absolutely.
Right, and that is so interesting. Do you know any other spots that we should focus on when it comes to in-store placement?
No, I think the glass is absolutely the best. Think of it very, you know, what's amazing is that, like I was telling you, the spirit of entrepreneurship among Indian small store owners is so incredible that this is the exact same thing that you will see in modern retail, like a modern retail store, that before you are at the checkout counter, there will be a bunch of thrifty, matlab, 20, 30, 50 रुपए की चीजें that you can just pick up at the end. कि मतलब pens होंगे, छोटी-छोटी चीजें होंगी that you can pick up. The same is true for the small shop owner, where they have figured that बच्चे जो हैं, उनकी थोड़ी height भी कम होती है. So they are just tall enough to see what's happening inside the glass. So a lot of chocolate companies insist they would pay money to the store owner to say कि मेरे सामान जो है यहाँ पे रहेंगे glass slab के अंदर में. And that's why you, myself and every one of us, our favorite memory of being a child is when we go to the Kirana store, parents go buy all the boring things, rice, dal and so on, and we are looking inside that thinking कि कोई एक chocolate मिल सकती है क्या हमें. So I think this is a very thoughtful effort that our store owners have done much before probably organized retail figured it out.
This is so interesting. Now that I'm wondering, what all do small business owners know? And I think you are the best person to tell me this in the context of OYO, because you went from being a small business owner to now running a $1 billion company. So when you made that journey and now that you're at the top, what are the most important insights that you got by talking to your hotel owners, which you would otherwise not have got by just looking at data?
Yeah. Look, I think I want to take a step back and share that I have a fundamental thesis, which is that between competing with a small business owner and partnering with a small business owner, always better to partner them. And many people will disagree with me.
Okay.
But this is just my opinion. I believe that the small business owners have various things, like I mentioned, which are unique to themselves and is their unique strength, whether it is knowledge of the customer, ability to work exceptionally hard for their business, being able to get, a significant amount of new insights. So to that extent, OYO is also sort of built on the partnership of substantial amount of small businesses. We don't own almost any hotels on our balance sheet. All the hotels that we partner with are owned by other small businesses who just happen to now sport the OYO brand, bring the OYO standards in their hotel, put the OYO technology and get increase in their business through us. On the other hand, 40% of my customers, in fact the largest segment of my customers, are actually small and medium business owners.